Now, Schumer's political vulturism aside, the FAA is jokingly called the tombstone agency because of its track record of reacting slowly and not being proactive enough. But the FAA is not the only government agency that resides in the swamp. The EPA is also right there with all the other deep state creatures, despite now being run by the man whose intention is to actually drain the swamp. Joining me now from Washington, D.C., Vice President of Cause of Action, the Institute itself, Lee Stevens. Lee, let's face it, the deep state still exists. You can call it whatever you want. Some people want to call it the swamp, but I call it the deep state and the swamp interchangeably. These are entrenched bureaucrats who may or may not have a political agenda and motive. And the other aspect of that is we have to admit that there are elements of the Obama administration in particular still at work at the EPA, and your institute is investigating how this EPA is still kind of operating at its own pace, its own political pace, if you will, and not necessarily the way it is supposed to vis-a-vis policies and procedures of the federal government.
Well, that's right, and our particular investigation in this instance involved the reported use of encrypted messaging applications by EPA officials. This started about a year ago, and so that is one aspect that we've been investigating. Unauthorized
electronic communications using government-issued devices, correct? So what are we talking about here? What kind of applications?
Well, the particular applications that have been most in the news are one application called Signal, and the other one is called WhatsApp. Both of them are messaging applications. Signal, in particular, has the ability to encrypt the messages. And so basically what the allegations here were that the EPA officials were using secret, unauthorized messaging applications and to thwart President Trump's new agenda at the EPA.
And these are things like Facebook Messenger, too, correct? That is not secure and is designed for personal use. And then the third problem I have with it is it violates the Federal Records Act necessarily.
That's right. And our most recent investigation or results of our investigation is the fact that in addition to these two encrypted messaging applications, there were 16 other messaging applications, some of them like Facebook Facebook Messenger and Google Hangouts and AOL email and so forth. These are not secure. They're being used in an unauthorized manner, and they're being used for company business or work-related business that are outside the normal record-keeping operations. And so that's exactly what the problem is here.
And is this discovered by the Inspector General through a private contractor? Is how this unfolded?
Well, what happened is that the Inspector General did begin an investigation into the use of Signal and WhatsApp, and as part of that investigation, they were able to contract with a third party, as we understand it, and do a survey of the entire network, all the devices, the government-issued devices at the EPA, to see what was downloaded. And it was not just what was discovered was not just email messaging and messaging applications, but also personal finance, games, entertainment, and so forth. So there are hundreds and hundreds of applications that have been downloaded through an Apple App Store on government devices and presumably being used during government time.
All on our dime. 44 U.S. Code 3101. That is the Federal Records Act, and in part it reads, each federal agency shall make and preserve records containing adequate and proper documentation of the organization, functions, policies, decisions, procedures, and essential transactions of the agency. I think maybe the key word there, Lee, is preserve. And I don't know, I've used Facebook Messenger before, and I don't see there's a very good way to preserve the communications I've done in there, and I have no clue what Signal. What in the wide world of sports is Signal all about?